3:10 p.m., December 1943. Over occupied Europe, the air war followed a rule that no fighter pilot argued with. If an aircraft could no longer fight, it disengaged. The rule was never formally written, but it was enforced by physics, fuel consumption, and casualty lists nailed to squadron walls. Fighters existed to escort bombers only while they remained combat-capable. Once primary control surfaces failed, once fuel lines ruptured or radios went silent, the mission ended for that pilot. Continuing forward did not increase the chance of success, it only increased the chance of never returning. American commanders believed this rule because they had paid for it in blood. Entire squadrons had been worn down by pilots who tried to force damaged aircraft to continue. German commanders believed it because their tactics depended on it. Luftwaffe interception doctrine assumed that damaged escorts would peel away, leaving bombers exposed at the precise moment of attack. Escort fighters were never intended to absorb sustained punishment. A crippled fighter could not pursue attackers, it could not climb into position, it could not dive effectively, and above all, it could not protect bombers locked into rigid formations, flying straight and level at fixed speeds and altitudes. By late 1943, this rule had hardened into certainty. Thousands of airmen were dead because they had attempted to stretch damaged machines beyond their limits. Bomber crews understood it, fighter pilots accepted it, ground commanders planned around it. And yet, on one mission over Germany, a single American pilot broke that rule completely. He did not disengage, he did not turn back. And for hours, with an aircraft that should not have remained airborne, he stayed where doctrine said he could not exist at all. 6:45 a.m. the same morning, at an airfield in eastern England. Robert S. Johnson was not known as a reckless pilot. He was not famous, nor was he singled out during briefings. Born in Loughton, Oklahoma, and raised during the Great Depression, Johnson entered the Army Air Forces as thousands of others had, trained quickly, expected to follow procedures, and taught to respect limitations. By 1943, Johnson was flying with the 56th Fighter Group, assigned to the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt. The aircraft was massive for a fighter, weighing more than 8 tons fully loaded. It was powered by a Pratt & Whitney R2800 radial engine, designed to endure punishment that would destroy lighter aircraft. The Thunderbolt was not graceful. It did not turn tightly or climb rapidly. It survived through strength, thick armor, redundant systems, heavy wings, and 8 50 caliber machine guns. Johnson trusted the aircraft, but he understood its limits. The P-47 could bring pilots home riddled with damage, but only if its essential systems remained intact. Strategically, the air war was approaching a breaking point. American bombers were pushing deeper into Germany without reliable long-range escort. Loss rates were severe. Entire bomber crews were being destroyed before reaching their targets. Every failed mission meant lost airmen and factories left untouched. Johnson's mission that day was part of an effort to extend escort coverage as far as possible. His squadron was tasked with protecting heavy bombers penetrating German airspace, aircraft unable to maneuver defensively and entirely dependent on escort fighters. The stakes were clear. Every bomber lost meant 10 men dead or captured. Every bomber saved meant a mission completed and a crew returning. Johnson climbed into his cockpit, understanding that success depended on discipline, not heroics. He strapped in, knowing that holding formation mattered more than individual survival. Nothing in the briefing suggested this mission would be remembered. 11:30 a.m., December 1943, over enemy-controlled territory. The bomber stream crossed into German airspace in daylight, maintaining altitude and tight formation. Johnson's P-47 took its assigned escort position. Engines ran at steady power. Visibility was clear. Contrails streaked the sky above the formation, stretching for miles. German fighters arrived in coordinated waves. Bf-109s and FW-190s attacked from above and behind, diving through the formation in slashing passes designed to scatter escorts and isolate bombers. Johnson maneuvered aggressively, diving to intercept, firing, then climbing back to rejoin. Then his aircraft was hit. Cannon rounds tore through the Thunderbolt's fuselage. The impact was immediate and violent. Control cables snapped, hydraulic systems failed, fuel lines ruptured, spraying vaporized fuel into the cockpit. The aircraft lurched hard. Johnson tested the controls. Response was partial. The throttle stiffened, rudder pedals lost effectiveness, the radio went silent. Warning lights illuminated across the instrument panel. Fuel pressure dropped rapidly. By doctrine, the decision was clear. A damaged fighter disengaged. But Johnson could still see the bombers ahead, still deep in enemy airspace, still drawing interceptors. He understood that German pilots were watching. The moment an escort peeled away, bombers would be attacked. Johnson stayed. He trimmed the aircraft manually, compensating for damaged controls with constant adjustments. The P-47 no longer flew cleanly. It wallowed, resisted correction, and vibrated under strain. Another burst of fire struck the aircraft. A 20mm shell exploded near the cockpit. Shrapnel tore through the canopy. Plexiglass shattered inward. His oxygen system failed, flooding the cockpit with freezing air. Blood streamed down his face from multiple wounds. Johnson checked the engine instruments. Oil pressure held. Engine temperature climbed but stayed within limits. The radial engine continued to turn. German fighters circled, expecting the crippled Thunderbolt to fall away. When it did not, they attacked again. Johnson returned fire in short, controlled bursts. His guns still functioned, though ammunition counters were not reliable. He fired only when targets filled his sight. Time stretched. Fuel continued to leak. Johnson adjusted mixture and power, balancing consumption against the need to remain with the bombers. His left wing vibrated violently. Structural failure seemed imminent. At one point, a German fighter closed directly behind him, firing continuously. Cannon shells tore through the tail. Smoke filled the cockpit. Johnson was wounded again, fragments ripping through his legs. The enemy pilot flew so close Johnson could see the markings on the fuselage. The Thunderbolt did not fail. Hit after hit was absorbed. Armor deflected rounds. Redundant systems prevented total control loss. The engine continued producing power. Eventually, German fighters disengaged. Ammunition was expended. Fuel was low. The bombers crossed back towards safer airspace. Johnson remained with them until the final interception zones were cleared. Only then did he turn away. 2:40 p.m., December 1943, as aircraft began returning to England. The immediate impact of Johnson's actions was measured in bombers that landed safely. Crews survived an engagement that should have cost dozens of aircraft. German interceptors failed to exploit a moment they had been trained to expect. Escort presence did not collapse when one fighter was crippled. The psychological deterrent remained intact longer than doctrine predicted. Johnson's aircraft became a case study. Engineers examined damage patterns. Tactical officers analyzed enemy behavior. Fighter doctrine slowly adjusted to account for the survivability of heavily armored escorts. Enemy pilots reported encounters with American fighters that refused to disengage even after catastrophic damage. Morale reports reflected confusion and frustration. This did not change the war overnight, but it reinforced a growing realization. Fighters that stayed with bombers denied the Luftwaffe its most effective advantage. Johnson returned to combat. He flew additional missions. He survived the war. May 45, after the fighting in Europe had ended, Robert S. Johnson finished the war with 27 confirmed aerial victories. After the war, he lived quietly. He described the mission not as legend, but as memory. His shattered Thunderbolt became a symbol not of invulnerability, but of limits pushed to their edge. The aircraft was lost. The bombers were not. To this day,
Johnson's mission is studied not for recklessness, but for understanding how technology, training, and human judgment intersect under extreme conditions. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We are dedicated to rescuing these stories from the archives. If you want to join us on this mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or state and tell us if someone in your family served. Thank you for ensuring that Robert S. Johnson and the men of the 56th Fighter Group do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered.